Hello, everybody. I'm Glenn Jones, and I'm gonna go on.
All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and do a deck tech here in round 4 with Josh Cho. You guys just saw him on camera. If you're seeing this when it was filmed, which you're not, so it doesn't really matter. Josh, you're 3-0 so far.
Don't worry. We'll fix that in post.
No, that was purposeful. Joe, you're ruining it. All right, well, we're 3-0 so far in the tournament. We're playing a number of creatures that I would say see less Legacy play. Delver of Secrets is a little normal.
Yeah.
Death Shadow caught on a little bit last year.
Yep.
And Nivmagus Elemental, well, burned once, I shall we say. So today we're back, trying again, and let's just go ahead and run through the deck. What are we doing here? What is the nature of our deck?
Well, the deck came up. Jerry wrote an article last week. You can read that on Premium. It's a very good article where he goes into a number of different deck lists. But kind of as a throwaway, he included this Nivmagus Elemental deck. Well, when I was looking for someone to play for Legacy, I was like, Nivmagus Elemental? And that immediately caught my interest. I was like, all right, let's give this a read. And so I looked it over, and it's really interesting because, again, like I was saying, it's kind of a mix-up. It's like an amalgamation of the Pro Tour deck that we use with Nivmagus Elemental,
Sure.
With some Storm cards like Flusterstorm, and a little bit kind of like our Bug Delver list that we played at the Invitational. With Delvers, Death Shadows, where you do a lot of damage to yourself to get by using some pretty powerful spells like Snuff Out for removal. I don't know if you'd say Probe and Gut Shot is really powerful spells, but it all kind of works out really well together because it helps boost your storm count.
Sure.
There's some really cheap instances that you can use to boost your Nivmagus Elementals, all while dealing damage to yourself, which makes your Death Shadows even better.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the Death Shadow deck, we definitely did some work with it at the Invitational. There's deck tech in that coverage, and it was originally actually developed as a black-blue deck. I know Nick Roush had a different early version of it that you can find, I believe, in SCG Detroit, that Legacy Open this year. So Death Shadow is coming a long way in Legacy from the 10-cent box or whatever we're at. Amusingly, also gives you a great reason to play stuff like Watery Grave. Not normally what you see in Legacy, but Watery Grave with Death Shadow, very frequently a fetch you would even use. And you've got 2.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes you kind of want to get your Death Shadows online, and it really is matchup dependent. If you're playing against someone like Burn, or just someone with a lot of access to burn spells, where you kind of want to keep your life in line, they do a lot of the work for you by reducing your life total pretty low.
Sure.
And then you protect yourself with Force of Wills and Flusterstorms, things like that, so you don't actually die.
You gotta walk the line.
Yeah, it's a very fine line that I've been getting pretty lucky at today of walking. But again, you get a lot of information about what's in their hand. You have Gitaxian Probes and Thoughtseize to kind of get a feel for what their plan is.
Sure.
You kind of get a feel for the texture of the way the game's playing out, so you can see do I need to fetch to get a Water Grave to make my Death Shadows good?
Okay.
Do I need to just get an Underground Sea or even just a basic land against Wastelands? There's a lot of different lines that you can take, and it's kind of tricky choosing the right one, which I'm having a lot of difficulty with.
Nothing new, Josh Cho struggling to play Magic competently. You've also got a pretty spicy one. I'm pretty sure no one has registered in Legacy, at least to my knowledge. Clout of the Dominus. I think Jerry sideboarded these at the Pro Tour, if I recall, or at least considered doing it.
No, we had three on the sideboard, but
so Clout of the Dominus making, as far as I can tell, a Legacy debut here. What are you thinking about Clout? How good is this card in the deck? Is it one of the cards people should look to cut?
It's to cut.
I'm asking the question. That's what they're going to ask. I'm just getting there first, man. I want to know.
It's a fantastic card because, again, you don't have that many creatures in your deck. You have 12 ways to really win the game.
Okay.
You're relying pretty heavily on Death Shadow and Nivmagus Elemental. Delver sometimes, but sometimes
Sure.
it doesn't flip. But you really want to protect your Nivmagus Elementals. That's probably your key way to go. And also, you can set up some pretty exciting turns where you have nothing on board. Then you go Nivmagus, Cloud of the Dominus to get a paste, and just go off with a Storm card like Flusterstorm,
Sure.
with some free Phyrexian mana spells to really boost it up and to get your Nivmagus huge really quickly and then attack that turn. But the biggest thing is that because it's a blue creature, it gets the Shroud ability from Cloud of the Dominus, which protects it from a lot of the targeted removal spells. Yeah. It's already really good against stuff like Lightning Bolt, Rift Bolt, any the.
It's already a very
base.
durable creature, and that takes care of anything else that might get it, like Ghastly Demise.
Ghastly Demise, Swords to Plowshare's Path, those are huge. And those kind of cards are pretty difficult to protect against because they're so cheap. Sure. And so Clout boosts Nivmagus up 2 already, and then it gives these abilities that makes it super durable outside of sweeper effects like Supreme Verdict or Pernicious Deed, things like that. Abrupt Decay is also a huge one.
Yeah.
That's something that you really need to worry about is Abrupt Decay because it kills all of your win conditions.
Every single one. So Snapcaster, Abrupt Decay, definitely a problematic combination.
Absolutely.
You have to face those. If you look at the deck, like we've obviously laughed about some of the cards that it's playing, but a lot of these cards are also just like the best cards in Legacy. You know, like Force of Will, Daze, Brainstorm, Thoughtseize. I mean, Flusterstorm to a lesser extent, a powerful card like it's seeing a lot of play, especially in high-type combo decks. And this deck can be very much like a combo deck.
It kind of is, but again, you're not really setting up you're not setting up like one big turn to like Tainted Strike them.
You're just trying to jump really far ahead and protect for like 2 or 3 turns.
Like the same reason that Goyf is good because it's so cheap and it's a huge creature. You're trying to do the same, but you're building your own Goyfs, I guess.
Sure.
Is one way to say it. So.
All right. Well, I think we've pretty thoroughly covered the main deck, so let's go ahead and shift over to your sideboard, which has a few spicy ones.
A little bit.
I guess we've got Cloud of the Dominus living up to its name with a third one here in the sideboard, and you say it's one of the better cards, so I assume it's working out.
It's pretty important against those matchups where they have a lot of spot removal, more than just just a couple, so where you really want to protect your creatures.
Speaking of spot removal, you've got your own Ghastly Demises. I imagine they just come in the matchups where your opponents have creatures that you can kill.
I'm worried about like Tarmogoyfs, Delvers, things like that.
Sure. The most interesting card in the sideboard has to be the playset of Arayo Soratami Ascendant. I'm going to assume all you guys need to read it, so we're just going to make sure you see it. Arayu, the original flip cards from Champions Committee. I'm mixing a little with Delver Secrets here. How's Arayu been coming on the board?
Arayu's been coming in against pretty much everything so far. It's just it's super powerful. It's an effect that you can trigger it very easily by playing 4 spells a turn, or if they try to interact with you on your own turn and you just kind of like go off with Arayu and play. You have to be careful like when you play like the 4th spell because they kill that on the spot. Like it's pretty easy to kill at that point.
That's the 5th spell.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything against that. You can't like reflip it again. Right. So that's something you do have to keep in mind. Again, it's been kind of overperforming a little bit. Like we definitely missed it at the Pro Tour because like that would have been a good one to have in our bag of tricks there. But it's been very, very good so far. It might even warrant some consideration for the main deck, but it's already so streamlined that I don't know if you can really do that.
I think you would probably have to take it in a slightly different direction if you were going to go with it.
I think so as well, where you're more trying to combo them off and then to do things like that. But it's excellent protection against a lot of the different spells, a lot of the different archetypes that are out there in Legacy. So it's been very good there.
It's also just like a huge piece of card advantage.
It is.
And even with your deck's really low lane count, it's like 16, right?
Yeah, 16.
So you just have a very high spell density, making Arayo like significantly easier to flip, even in that regard. How often has 1/1 beatdown mode come into play?
I mean, it came into play on camera. Yeah. Like I was obviously, I was trying to flip it or whatever. I could have flipped it or whatever, but it was like, I kind of wanted to keep some spells in reserve to protect my, my creatures at that point. But I mean, it flies. It gets in there. Like 1 point of damage is nothing to scoff at. So.
I mean, let's not get crazy. It's worth scoffing slightly.
Slightly. You can chuckle to the side.
We can chuckle. Yeah. The rest of the sideboard reasonably. Just kind of vanilla sideboard-y cards, the kind of cards people throw in. But you've got Tormod's Crypt. There are a few options for the slot, obviously, like Surgical Extraction if you want it more for extra kind of stuff, or Relic, or Nile Spellbomb. So why are we on Tormod's Crypt?
Tormod's Crypt, it's really close between all of them. I think that Nile Spellbomb is probably the best. It's like more flexible, but I've had good experience with Crypt against graveyard-based strategies. Also, it's a 0 mana spell. It can boost your storm count. You don't have that many lands, so you don't really want to be keeping mana up if you don't have to. That kind of thing.
Sure.
So like just like dropping it for 0, it's free spell and all those different things where it's pretty useful. So you can use that. I think that there's not really a best answer to a lot of the graveyard hate. There might be. I'm just not smart enough to know what it is.
Which is very reasonable.
It's completely possible.
Sure.
Most definitely possible.
So what about these Pithy Needles? The only thing that comes off the top of my head for me is like Pernicious Deed maybe, but is there other stuff?
You can name Deed. It's kind of like a catch-all thing. If they're super reliant on one specific outlet, you can Pithing Needle kind of saves you there, but only if that's like the only way that they can win. Sure. It's not like super specific where you want it against a particular matchup. That kind of thing. Like I could see if they're like heavy on Grim Lava Monster or something like that, they could do that. But even then, I mean, it's kind of like a catch-all, like a little bit of a safety net, if you will.
The one sideboard ensnare is kind of interesting. I would actually think a couple ensnare, maybe like 2 or 3 even, could be a good option, especially against like decks that can really flood the board and gum you up.
Yeah.
Maverick ensnare is awesome against Maverick, but like it's pretty difficult to get through if you don't have one in a lot of situations.
I mean, that's definitely true. Like, this is like the entire deck. I think is just a pretty big work in progress at the moment. Like, it's the first time that I've played these decks. Even with the outside experience, like you're always learning new things. You always coming up with so many unique situations, and that's what Legacy offers.
Yeah, for example.
There's so many different like archetypes that all these different situations come up. So you kind of get a feel for where you want the deck to go. And sideboard's a huge part of it. It's a huge part of any deck. And so trying to get the numbers right is definitely something that I consider working on. Going forward in the future.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and let you continue on in the tournament here. You've got a 4th round to play at some point. Good luck. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a good one.
Hopefully we'll have Josh on camera some more. We'll be back with more Legacy.